Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode here in our beautiful Primus series. We're sending our two hydrogen rockets back home. They needed a refill. We needed some more berry sludge. We needed some oxalite. So they're going to get a refill. Unfortunately, mistakes were made. I may not have accounted for how much heat a hydrogen rocket outputs when it takes off. So we kinda broke Rekiel. None of the power is working because this beautiful large power transformer is overheating. Even worse, we broke 3 of our solar panels. This rocket took off first with Wheeljack and Optimus, and everything was fine. We even put some nice obsidian tiles in here so we wouldn't break these tiles. Unfortunately, this rocket was a bit too close, and this area here holds too much atmosphere. We're gonna need to go back here and cool this off and replace all this stuff. Mistakes were made. That's all I can say. But additionally, this episode, we're gonna be heading over to Fariel? Fariel. Not sure. We're gonna go with Fariel, because we want something that Fariel has. If you go all the way out to the boundaries here on our star map, you'll find this beautiful planetoid, and you'll see that it has a niobium volcano. Additionally, it also has a niobium biome. I just need a little bit of niobium. Just a little bit. Just a tiny bit. Once we get the disaster fixed on Rekiel, we'll have some resin, and then we're going to have some thermium. We're going to have all the late game materials and be able to do whatever we want. Unfortunately, though, we have a lot to fix. We only have 1 battery left, and it doesn't matter. It's dying too. Great news is it doesn't seem to have affected our polluted water much over here. Our Pacu will continue to breed. The critter sensor doesn't actually take power, and neither does the mechanized airlock. You can power it and make it go a little bit quicker, but right now this system's still working, so when there's less than 2 Pacu in here, the next fry egg that's hatched will plop down into the pond. Unfortunately, until we get some dupes and this stuff fixed, when these 2 Pacu fry grow up, our auto sweeper's not going to be able to grab the egg. But we only have a half a cycle for the Recon Virgo to get back, and we only have 2.5 cycles for the Dazzling Calypso. And once they get back, we already have all the liquid hydrogen and the liquid oxygen needed to fill those rockets, so it should be just a very quick turnaround. Alright, so our heroes of Rekiel have returned, and of course, they landed in the absolute wrong spot. So now we need to take back off, orbit, and this time select the correct landing pad, which in this case we'll use Rocket Platform 211. Unfortunately, hydrogen rockets are really hot. This area is not hydrogen rocket proof, so I don't know it is gonna break. Oh, buddy, that didn't look like it was good. Let's stay out of the rocket exhaust, please. It destroyed the supercoolant that was keeping our diamond press nice and cool. Time to remove our diamond press and recreate it. Alright, so we finally got the rocket to land where we wanted it to, but it wasn't as simple as just selecting this any landing pad. Normally there's a drop-down box that allows you to select which landing platform you want to come down on. It wouldn't let me. But what I did notice is when you do have a rocket in orbit, you can click on the rocket platform and it'll show all the rockets in orbit, and then you can tell that rocket to land at this platform. A little bit of a working round. I'm not sure what's up with that drop-down box, but for right now, I would recommend if you are running multiple rockets to make sure that you do use the method I just described by clicking on the rocket platform itself. The rockets are being refilled now. We already got the liquid oxygen full, so we can turn it off. And now we're just waiting for the rest of the liquid hydrogen to fill, and then these 2 rockets will be on their way. We are going to make one modification though. We want another Trailblazer module in one of the rockets, because we're only sending 1 rocket to Fariel, and we need to be able to land both Trailblazer modules and then land the rocket down upon it. So I think in this case, it would just be easy to remove 3 solar panel modules. Remove that one, and remove that one. It'll still give us 4 solar panel modules, which is not a ton of power, but it'll be enough power to run the gas pump when it's required and the atmosuit docks. And then I figured if we're doing it to one rocket, we might as well do it to the other. I mean, they're kind of twin rockets, right? We want to make sure they stay twinsies. And just like that, the liquid hydrogen tanks are all full. We are just about ready to go. A little bit on artifacts. Remember we brought the Grub Grub statue and the honey jar back from Rikiel, and I was assuming these were terrestrial artifacts. Unfortunately, it does not appear so. Clicking on the printing pod and going to the cosmic archaeology, highlighting over terrestrial artifacts, it says we've studied 0 out of 10. Where I know we found one coffee mug, or I'm sorry, an office mug on Fertilera, and then we found the 2 artifacts on Rikiel. So this might be bugged right now, and you may not be able to accomplish it. If you know of another way, or if you found out something different, please let me know in the comments below, because I was looking forward to actually seeing the ending or the small movie or whatever it is that goes with cosmic archaeology. I was checking on Rikiel to see what other heat damage is caused, and apparently even the tree can be halted in its growth. Its body temperature has to be between minus 100 and 100, otherwise you get this different little graphic and it looks all wilty and not happy. So now we have another problem on top of the existing problem. Also on artifacts, remember one of the cool things about the hydrogen rockets is they actually come with some artifact transport modules, which sounds all good. Except I don't know how to get the artifact transport modules out of the engine. I don't see any sort of rail system. It could be just the solid rocket port unloader. Also of an interesting note is they just keep collecting more office mugs. We're starting to get a pretty good collection of office mugs. Soon we're going to have one for every dupe. Well, it's not the solid rocket port unloader. Didn't think it was going to be, but it was worth a try. About the only thing that I would have left to test is just deconstructing the engine and putting another engine on, but man, that creates all sorts of problems, and we don't want to get into all that, so we're just gonna go ahead and leave the artifacts in there. But I think this rocket's about ready to go. We've got it loaded up with dirt, some extra steel, some reed fiber, and our beautiful berry sludge. So it is time to load everybody up, select the crew. I think it's Optimus and Wheeljack, yes. As soon as they get aboard, we will send these fine folks back to Rikiel to, fix 1 or 2 minor problems. All right, we've got everybody loaded and ready. It's time to send them back to Rikiel. The next rocket will be ready soon, and they will be heading straight to Fariel. All right, Optimus and Wheeljack have returned to Rikiel, and I think what we're going to do just to avoid this problem outright is just build everything out of steel. Let's definitely start with that large power transformer because we need some power here. And we can also rebuild all of our solar panels. Alright, the situation on Rikiel is about fixed. You can see we've replaced everything with steel, we've got the solar panels refixed. We're going to deconstruct this rocket platform. We don't ever want a rocket landing here. And we're also upgrading these ladders with obsidian. When the rocket first landed, some of the igneous rock had melted away, and it forced us to build steel doors because it's the only material we had inside the rocket that could actually build something that we could climb just to get into Rikiel. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen again in the future by just upgrading these to obsidian. Obsidian has a much higher melting point than the igneous rock. Obsidian's melting point is 2726, and igneous rock is 1409, so over 1300 degrees Celsius. But now we have to get Experiment 52B, aka the Whomping Willow, able to grow again. You can see we've stacked up some Pacu filet, but the tree's kind of dormant, so they won't eat it, and we don't want it to go bad, so we need to hurry up. And I think we're actually going to use an old school method for this one, and that's by using the beautiful icy fan. Is it efficient? No. Is it the easiest way to do it? Also no. But we're making ice in 130, 140 degrees. I mean, if there's nothing else more ONI about that, I don't know what else is. So we're going to use the icy fan, and after, I don't know, 4,000 cycles, we may be able to cool it down in here. Now, we needed fresh water to be able to get ice into the ice makers. So we're pulling our water from this polluted water tank, bringing it into this water sieve, and the water sieve is pumping it into this little container here where the pitcher pump can then grab it and put it into the ice maker. And we're making ice in 120 degrees. Slow and steady, Betty. I was getting ready to load them in their Atmos suits, and this is something I'm going to need to pay a better attention to next time. You can notice that this Atmos suit only has a durability of 7%. If it was already worn out, or if it worn out before it got there, well, we'd have no way to put Bumblebee or Megatron into the Trailblazer module because they wouldn't be able to get out without a suit on. Or they would be able to, they just wouldn't survive for very long. Our daring away team has made it to Fariel, so it is time to load up those Trailblazer modules. We'll put Megatron in one, Bumblebee in the other, and start deploying them. Now, we got some considerations here. It appears that, unlike Rekiel, there is plenty of landing space before you hit the roof. So we don't have to worry too much about that. I kind of like this area here. I believe it is 9 tiles, so it would be big enough to land a rocket there. And there's obsidian down here. We could use that obsidian. So I think we'll just go ahead and land right here. Bring Bumblebee down right next to him, and they are ready to go. Step 1, deconstructing these Trailblazer modules to get the beautiful steel. And here is what we have to contend with. But there is the niobium. Beautiful niobium. We only need a little bit, but it looks like it's still going to be a pain in the butt to get to. And as luck would have it, they haven't slept, so they're trying to sleep. Unfortunately, it's too bright, so this isn't going very well. Another key of working on this planet is we're going to make sure that we keep it as a vacuum. We don't want any gases or liquids to come into contact with anything here. But now we have enough steel for our rocket platform. Let's just put it right here. We need to dig down to where they can walk down the stairs to be able to get access to the obsidian. And that way they can actually build ladders. And remember, if you will, we left Megatron and Bumblebee pretty free of skills. So now we can load them up with the required digging skills. We have the ladder system just about done. Then we'll be able to get back in the Spacefarer module, grab some steel, and make our way to that sweet, sweet niobium. Amidst of everything else on Fariel, we actually had to put an exosuit forge in here to fix those Atmos suits. Now, they're not going to last very long. As soon as they get a little bit of heat, for instance, this jumbo battery is already at 88 degrees, and it'll eventually overheat, and then we'll just deconstruct it and create it again. But for now, we've got fresh Atmos suits, and we are working on getting down in here. Here's the plan. You know how plans go. I would like to be able to build a bunch of manual airlocks, and that's how we kind of bore ourselves down there. But because this is kind of overpressured, you can see that the magma's sort of pushing up. So we're going to have to do it in steps, hoping that we brought enough steel to go around. We still have 3.5 tons, and we only have to clear the magma out of these areas, and then we'll be okay. Okay, somebody forgot to load the rocket with dirt. I'm blaming Bumblebee, because I know I loaded that rocket full of dirt. Somebody just came in and took it, and Bumblebee didn't stop them. But it's not a big deal. With the advent of the interplanetary launcher, we just loaded it up with some dirt and connected it to our existing rad bolt system. It waits for 91 rad bolts. Remember, you always need one more rad bolt than the launch cost. Little bug there. And then we just fired some dirt. And even without a beacon, they just land anywhere on the surface. Well, we can get to most places on the surface. In fact, we can get to the entire surface. So it's not a big deal. And then we just add a payload opener. And the great thing about the payload opener is it doesn't require any power. The last thing I'm doing is putting a bottle emptier to empty out all the polluted water now sitting in our Spacefarer module. And because the dupes were getting stressed by constantly walking in their polluted water and getting sunburnt and yada yada yada, excuses, we ended up putting in a massage table. So now they take periodic breaks to relax a little bit. We are ready to dig down, and I wanted to get rid of some of this magma. So what we've done is we've put a manual airlock below this manual airlock. So when this one opens, magma floods in. This one is shut. So when this manual airlock shuts, it just destroys the magma. It'll take a few times putting dupes in and out and in and out, but eventually this magma will be destroyed, and then we'll be able to dig down and grab all of our niobium. Here's an example being demonstrated by Megatron now. Both doors open, some magma falls in, Megatron leaves, and we're left with a little bit less magma. It's not a perfect system. It takes a couple times for the dupes going in and out so the magma falls just right. But either way, I think we've done it enough time to where we can continue our digging and our dupes won't be doing it in magma. We've gotten to the point where the magma is such a small amount it will not drip down because the way its viscosity is. So we're just going to destroy this manual airlock. That way the dupes don't have to open this airlock before they open this one every time. And there it is. The magma just sits there, so we are free to bore this out without magma dropping on our head. Over on Rikiel, look who's decided to wake up. Old Experiment 52B is back within the temperature threshold. Our little icy fan has worked. It's brought the ambient temperature to below 100 degrees. And so now the tree's back to eating. We're only up to 13 kilos. It will definitely take a while, especially considering we had the power issue, which stopped Pacu production for a little bit, but since then we've got 26 Pacu in there, so eventually they will keep dying off and still feeding the tree. It's a very slow process, I admit, but remember the reason why we went to this one is because it is duplicate free. We've cut into our first species of niobium, so now we're going to be able to highlight what the molecular forge can do with it. And there it is. Beautiful thermium. It only takes 5 kilos of niobium and 95 kilos of tungsten. You'll remember that you can make tungsten out of wolframite. Now, something to highlight. The niobium that you get from this is very small. Remember, whenever you dig something up, you lose half its mass. So this 28 kilos of niobium turns into 14. And then we're loading all the niobium back into our storage bin here. Once we've collected enough, we'll head back home and make some thermium. All right, change one. Apparently this niobium is very hot and it's not doing so well. So what I think we're going to do is let it sit on the surface of the planetoid and exchange heat. Remembering that abyssalite doesn't really transfer heat because after all, its thermal conductivity is 0. That's why we say there's a crack in the abyssalite, right? Because those cracks are the only way that temperature would go in and out of a biome before the game even starts. So we're going to load this little thing up with liquid. And unfortunately, the only source of liquid that we have on this planet is either magma or polluted water. And I would prefer not having the dupes urinate themselves for us to then pour it onto the niobium. So what we're going to do is we're going to ship some over via the interplanetary launcher. So over on Fertilera, we're loading up this interplanetary launcher with some beautiful crude oil. Just because we had a lot of it laying around and it was relatively close to our interplanetary launcher. Now all we have to do is throw some more rad bolts in this thing and away it goes. Alright, it's loaded up and there it goes, firing them off. Man, I love that thing. We're going to leave this toggle on for a little bit. I'm not sure how much crude oil it's going to take to actually cool that niobium down. Chances are, we're just going to make a world of a mess. I think we should try putting the urine on the niobium anyways, for science. After all, the dupes gave us the opportunity, right? I don't know why they didn't clean their bathroom. Now you want to clean the bathroom, huh, Megatron? I cannot believe I just saw Megatron give Bumblebee finger guns. That is amazing. We'll just go ahead and flip this magic bottle emptier onto some polluted water and see what happens. Okay, so here's what happens. The polluted water vaporizes and leaves dirt. The dirt then gets superheated and makes sand. Oh, look, there's our crude oil. This is going to be even better because that crude oil is going to come hit this heat, turn into petroleum, and then flash into sour gas. Don't mind us. We're just cooling a rare resource on a distant planet covered with magma with crude oil. And the crude oil is heating up rapidly. For a second, we're gonna have a petroleum boiler. Didn't I tell you we'd make a petroleum boiler? There it is, petroleum. And now we're about to make a sour gas boiler. And now we have sour gas. Oh, the miracles of ONI science. The end state, though, is we got the niobium down to 591 degrees. I also think we'd have better performance if we got rid of all the obsidian out of here. So we're going to take the obsidian and the sand out of here, put it into a storage bin, and then continue back cooling the niobium. This batch of crude oil is not going to heat up enough in order to flash into sour gas, so we're just going to vent it. We'll deconstruct this tile, it'll smush it over, and when we get another batch of crude oil, it'll keep getting colder and colder until we're about at 60 degrees. I'll feel comfortable putting it into the rocket once it hits around 60 degrees. So while we wait on the crude oil to come in to cool off that niobium, I figured we get every piece of niobium that we could dig up from this planetoid. Unfortunately, it looks like we've unleashed one tile of oxygen that was hiding down here. I don't know where it was, but we now have oxygen down here, which makes it way too hot for our dupes to get down here. We'll slowly come get these last 4 pieces of niobium. The only other niobium on the planetoid are these here, and there's no way I am unleashing this sour gas. No thank you, no how. At first, I thought I was like, okay, well, I can just corner build and destroy the sour gas. But now that there's oxygen in here, that means our dupes are going to get scalded and get hurt. I think the best we can do right now is just grab these 4 pieces of niobium, get it cooled down, and get off this hot rock. There's nothing like recovering from some scalding injuries in the vacuum of space. Am I right, guys? So staring at Bumblebee and Megatron, it made me realize something. Could you imagine if ONI introduced gravity mechanics? I get it, things fall down, but in the vacuum of space, nothing falls down. And you can convince me that maybe these triage cots are bolted to this abyssalite, but you can't convince me that they bolted this clipboard to it. Or this reed fiber, it should be floating through the vacuum of space right now. We're even going to improve this process. We put an automation switch onto the liquid vent, so that way we can just let a little bit of oil at a time, clean up that oil once it's absorbed all of its heat, and then let a little bit more through. Batch by batch, that niobium is getting cooler and cooler. Now we just mop up the oil and then drop a little bit more onto it. Fun fact, a duplicate on a triage cot doesn't breathe. I took off the suit because he had urinated in it, and I figured, oh, I'll dump it into the vacuum of space. And then he wouldn't put it back on, he just jumped back in the triage cot, and I was like, hold on, it says you're holding your breath, but you're not actually losing your breath. And look at this. After entirely too much micromanagement, we finally have the niobium getting to that magic temperature. 1 or 2 more oil baths and it'll be ready to go. And just so we don't have to deal with any of the messages about Building X being destroyed, we're just going to go ahead and destroy everything before we even leave. And that is that. Let's go ahead and switch it to crew. Set our destination is the beautiful Fertilera and get our butts home. What's going to be great is watching the hydrogen exhaust fill this cavern and it be superheated. You won't be able to come down here for hundreds of cycles. Here we go. And there's the steam making its way in. It's not as much as I would have expected. I suppose most of it comes directly down onto the abyssalite. There's definitely enough in there to make it not pleasurable to be there. Meanwhile, on Rekiel, we've got the overall temperature down to about 70 degrees. So I think we can stop with the icy fans. Make sure there's no other power consumers other than absolute necessary. And then we'll send Wheeljack and Optimus home as well. Now we put some insulated tiles here to kind of protect it. Beautiful. And that way our base was protected as that rocket left. I had almost forgotten to do a critter check here in our beautiful Infinite Paku farm. We're up to 238 Paco. 239 Paco. Once again, our heroes have returned with the niobium, so down to the molecular forge we go. Easy peasy, we'll just load this up. Let's say, we'll start with 10 pieces of thermium. That looks good. It's rather fitting that Megatron would be given the honors to make the first piece of thermium. And here it is, our first piece of thermium. By itself, thermium is an amazing material. You can see by going to its properties, it has an overheat modifier of plus 900 degrees. That's pretty stout. But here's what's great, and why we only needed a little bit of niobium. We can now take that thermium and turn it into 100 kilos of niobium. So as soon as you have your first 5 kilos of niobium, you basically have as much thermium as you can find. The only thing that'll hold you back is the tungsten. Tungsten, if you remember, is created from wolframite, which is still a lot more common than, say, niobium or thermium. And that'll about do it for today's episode. I hope you had a blast. Just a heads up, we only have one more episode left on this colony, and I think you're going to enjoy it. We're going to destroy it by doing crazy, unimaginable things. It's going to be a blast, and I hope to talk to you then. Talk to you soon.